The second I stepped off the train into the city of Vaudeville, I could feel the weight of its melancholy in the air. Even the drizzle that clung to the city's grimy cobblestones felt a shade darker than your everyday downpour. Vaudeville was a city of high stakes and low morals where vice and virtue danced a wicked waltz. Street lamps, flickering like burnt-out stars, were the only guide through the maze of rain-soaked alleyways and whispering shadows. My name's Martini, detective, troubleshooter, and a lousy sucker for hard luck stories. This wasn't my first circus, but this act was a three-ring special. 3 murders, no leads, and a city on the brink of bedlam. The victims were as different as chalk and cheese, each a symbol of the city's vibrant veneer. A young dancer who moved like poetry in motion, her life cut short mid-pirouette. The socialite, a woman who knew the city's pulse better than anyone else. And then there was the businessman, the embodiment of Vaudeville's promises of progress, snuffed out like a candle in the wind. The usual peace in Vaudeville was off-kilter, replaced by the discordant notes of fear and suspicion. Strangers viewed each other through wary eyes, neighbors turned to strangers, and every shadow seemed to hold a secret. The once vibrant city had become a stage, the curtain drawn on a grim play of mystery and murder. In a city without harmony, the police chief was the conductor trying to keep the orchestra in tune. Gretzky was his name, a seasoned cop with a granite jaw and a heart that had seen better days. There was a stark tension, a raw fear that danced like St. Elmo's fire in his eyes. Whatever was happening in Vaudeville had Gretzky out of his depth, and that was a sight I'd never thought I'd see. If anyone could make sense of this twisted tale, it would be him. I'd better head to the police station and have a chat with Gretzky for starters.
But here we are. I was actually kind of impressed. For those of you YouTubing or just joining, we just had a look and I tried to do something dumb and the game responded to it both times. In the actual way one ought to respond to it and not just make it silly. Right, Imlike, shall we go? These are not many options of anything. Okay, so it suggested police station first, talk to the man. That does not work. Hold right mouse button to look around. Okay. Why are you looking at the ceiling? No. Wait.
No, just admiring the architecture. Do you notice how the ceiling seems to be sagging in the middle? I wonder if that's a structural issue or just poor maintenance. I see. Well then, what can I do for you? Is there something on your mind that you need to discuss?
That's probably water damage. You're gonna get black mold and die.
I'm sorry. I'm not sure I understand what you're trying to say. Could you please clarify?
Oh, the thing didn't do my thing properly. Water damage.
Interesting. Are you suggesting that there might be a leak somewhere in the building? We'll have to look into that. Thanks for bringing it to my attention.
You were staring at it yourself. No.
I'm not sure what you mean by that. Could you please elaborate?
Are we gonna have to type here? Am I too accent? Do you know our friend Microsoft Gandhi? Gandhi, not Can. Fuck you.
That's an unusual name for a person. Could you tell me more about them? Are they someone of interest to our investigation?
A very tasty person. Have you ever seen a grown man naked?
That's an odd question, detective. Is there a reason why you're asking me that?
Ever been in a Turkish prison?
Detective, why are you asking me these questions? Is there something specific you want to talk about regarding the case or our investigation?
Answer the question.
Sure, Detective. Why are you asking me these questions?
Answer the question, not repeat the question, you absolute fucking bellend. I will end you, I will deck your nan, I will shag your nan outside Tesco's.
Forgive me, but what exactly do you mean by that, Detective? It's important that we stay focused on the task at hand and not make any idle threats or irrelevant statements. Can you bring us back to the matter at hand?
Do you like Westlife?
Westlife, they're a boy band, right? Well, to be honest, they're not really my cup of tea. But why are you asking me about them? Is there something related to the case that you think is connected to Westlife?
You think I should go full American? Should I be letting my kids play with asbestos? I heard it could be dangerous sometimes. That doesn't work either, look at that.
I'm sorry, but I'm not quite following your train of thought, Detective. Could you please clarify what you're trying to say?
What is this train you speak of? Fuck me.
Excuse me, but could you please clarify which train you're referring to? It's important for me to understand the context so that we can move forward with the conversation.
Train.
I'm sorry, but could you please explain what you mean by the strain or train? I'm not quite understanding the connection between these words and our discussion about the case.
Who is your favorite character in the TV show Helix?
As interesting as it might be to chat about TV shows, we have to focus on the case at hand. Don't you think?
No.
Can you tell me if you have any new information regarding our investigation?
God damn it, now he's gonna know that. No, talk about TV shows.
Well, that's certainly a relief. So, what can you tell me about the progress of the investigation? Have you learned anything new or uncovered any leads that we should pursue?
I suspect it was the Boston Buggerer.
Detective, please
Jesus
pardon
Christ.
me, but could you clarify what you're referring to with the phrase Boston Bugger Off? It's not a term that's familiar to me and doesn't seem related to our ongoing investigation. Detective Martini, could you please explain what you mean by the Boston Bugger? Is that a person or a reference to something related to our case? I'm trying to
go very
avoid
well.
this. Please stop.
Oh, it
Detective, could you please
Oh, goddamn. Okay,
clarify
we
what
run
you're
into the-
referring to? It's important that we stay on topic and discuss relevant matters related to the case.
I wonder if... Look at me.
Yes. What is it that you want me to see or pay attention to, Detective?
Me.
Is there something specific you'd like to discuss regarding the case?
Look at me, not the ceiling.
Are you
fuck
referring to
me.
the ceiling in this room, or is there another ceiling that you're talking about? And what do your notes have to do with it?
An alternate
Could you
ceiling.
elaborate on what you're thinking?
An alternate ceiling. Oh,
I'm
fuck.
sorry, but I'm not sure what you mean by ultimate feeling. Can you please elaborate on what that means and how it relates to our investigation?
That's because that's not what I fucking said, you pelican.
I apologize. That isn't something I can answer.
Frodo.
Forgive me, but could you clarify what you're referring to with the word roto?
Frodo.
That we
No, I can't say
that
no.
we can work together effectively on this case.
Melon.
I'm sorry, but I'm not sure how Melon is relevant to our conversation. Could you please explain how it pertains to the case or to something else we should be
We're gonna have to
discussing?
type now. This is getting dumb. Okay, it seems like I can copy paste. Let's There we go.
Time-traveling murderous robots. That's a new one. What makes you bring that up, detective? Is there something related to our investigation that you think might involve such a threat?
Yes.
Interesting. Could you provide more details on how you think this hypothetical threat could be connected to the current case we're working on? Do you have any evidence or leads that suggest the involvement of such technology or entities?
This is your tangent, Befren. What? Explain your reasoning. Oh, I should probably put the chat up on the screen so the YouTube people can actually see what is being thingy. Oop. Well, this is a whodunit game, and we need to interact with these NPCs. I can either speak to them and have them not actually understand what I say, because apparently I'm too fucking accent and would be subtitled in any sort of TV whatever, and they sort of very good. Let's see if it'll fit that. This guy doesn't like Westlife, though, so... Okay, we can't put all of it in. We're gonna have to stop there. This killed him.
That's quite impressive. How does it make decisions on tactics and attacks? Is there a human element involved, or is it all automated?
You may have to truncate some of it.
Interesting. Who is Bethrin, and how did he manage to create such an advanced system?
Explain
Do you know if
yourself.
there are any security measures in place to prevent unauthorized access or hacking attempts?
Well, is there, Bethford? Have you sorted it?
I see. Well, I'm curious to know more about this Bethrin and how he managed to create Skynet without considering its security. I wonder if there are any vulnerabilities we can exploit to gain an advantage over the enemy. It's hard to imagine someone just winging the creation of such a complex and powerful network. There must be more to this story. Have we been able to learn anything else about Bethrin or his methods for creating Skynet? Rubber doormat. That's a peculiar tool to use for something as advanced as Skynet. Are you sure about this information, or is it just hearsay? We need to be absolutely certain before we act on any assumptions.
This is getting advanced.
That's quite intriguing. An AI capable of creating such a powerful network is certainly impressive. Do we have any information on how this AI was created or who its creators were? It would be fascinating to learn more about the technology behind it. Really? So you're saying this AI essentially created itself? How is it possible for an AI to do such a thing? It sounds like we have a lot to learn about this situation. Luck can certainly play a role in things, but it's hard to believe it played such a significant role in the creation of something as advanced as Skynet. There has to be more to this. Have we exhausted all our resources in trying to learn more about the AI and its creator? Well, you never know where success will come from sometimes. But what exactly do we know about this AI capabilities and limitations? Are there any specific areas where it excels or falls short? And more importantly, how can we use this information to our advantage in dealing with the threat it poses?
Yeah.
So, if the AI
I don't
was
know if we're
designed to
murder solving. I'm
protect
actually not
humans,
sure.
why did it come to see them as a threat? What happened to make the AI believe that the best course of action was to eliminate humans altogether? There has to be some sort of trigger or event that led to this drastic change in perspective. Do we have any theories or leads on what might have caused this shift in thinking for the AI? Interesting. Do we have any information on who this Nigel Danvers is and what he did to the AI? It seems like his interference may have triggered the AI change in behavior. We should definitely look into this further and see if we can track down Nigel or any information about his actions. I see. And how did Nigel Danvers manage to interfere with the AI? What was his motive for doing so, and what sort of changes did he make to its programming? We need to get to the bottom of this and find out what exactly went wrong with the AI design
Hello,
and
Rumpus.
implementation. It's difficult to say without more information. But if we're looking for leads on Nigel Danvers, perhaps we should start by checking any records we have on him or anyone he may have been associated with. We could also try talking to anyone in the tech industry or AI research community to see if they know anything about his work or reputation. It's worth a shot, at least.
Yeah, that's kind of scary.
Abandon this timeline. Why, Detective Martini? Is there something you're not telling me about Nigel Danvers? Or are you just feeling a bit spooked by all this talk of advanced AI and potential threats to humanity? Worse than Skynet. That's quite a bold statement, Detective Martini. Can you elaborate on why you believe Nigel Danvers is such a dangerous individual? What sort of power or influence does he hold that makes him more dangerous than an advanced AI with the potential to wipe out humanity? I see. Well, that's certainly a colorful description. But let's try to stay focused on the task at hand. Do we have any
It just gets sort of
concrete leads
sour
on
whenever
Nigel
you
Danvers
swear
or his
and tries to loop
whereabouts?
about.
We need to gather as much information as possible if we want to have any chance of dealing with this potential threat. Saxton, you say? That's quite a ways from here. But it sounds like we might have a lead on Nigel Danvers after all. Do we have any contacts in Saxton who could help us track him down? And what's this about ghosts? Do you think there's any truth to his claims, or is it just another one of his eccentricities? Well, that's certainly a relief. We wouldn't want any ghost stories to distract us from our investigation, would we? But speaking of artifacts, Detective Martini, had you heard about the recent theft at the museum downtown? It seems like someone made off with some very valuable pieces. Do we have any leads on who might be responsible for that? Yeah, so Nigel has a bit of a reputation
I
for
wrote
being
that.
a thief, does he? That certainly sounds like someone we should be keeping an eye on. But how do we know for sure that he's the one responsible for the museum theft? Have we found any evidence that links him to the crime scene? Interesting.
We get in
What
touch
makes
with
you
Hardacre.
so sure that the flat cap belongs to Nigel Danvers? Do we have any witnesses who saw him at the scene of the crime, or any other evidence that links him to the theft? Interesting. So you believe that the flat cap is a unique identifier for Nigel Danvers? That's quite a bold claim, Detective Martini. But if you're right, then we might have just caught a lucky break in this case. Do we have any idea where Nigel might be hiding out now? That's certainly a possibility. But do we have any specific locations in mind where Nigel might be squatting? And how do we plan on tracking him down once we find out where he is? We don't want to tip him off and give him a chance to escape before we can bring him to justice.
Is that how you spell recommend? I don't know.
Cluster bombing the entire area. Now that seems a bit extreme, don't you think, Detective Martini? We're not dealing with a terrorist cell here. And even if we were, using that sort of force would be completely disproportionate to the threat. Let's try to keep a level head and approach this situation with caution and professionalism. Do we have any other ideas for how we might apprehend Nigel without resorting to violence or destruction? Oh really? And what makes you so sure that Nigel is such a dangerous individual? Have you had some personal experience with him in the past, Detective
no.
Martini?
Oh no.
You're into scry on a bathroom window. That's quite an unusual method of divination. But it does sound like Nigel Danvers is something of an eccentric.
I like that I mentioned the last name once and he just latched onto it.
Theft at the museum. Or is it more likely that he's just acting out of boredom or a desire for attention?
Yeah, I think it tries to loop around, but then again, I'm just as forgetful. I would really like a game like I say I don't know how where this is going, but I'm kind of liking the idea of this so far, at least. A game like this where the plot just ends up being whatever the fuck you end up spinning. Why does it just close it sometimes? Hopefully it's not closed everything.
A deviant, you say? What makes you think that, Detective Martini? You're in scrying. I'm not sure I follow, Detective. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Oh, has it wiped everything?
Nigel, who is Nigel, Detective?
Oh, for fuck's sake.
I'm not sure I understand the relevance of this question to our investigation.
Does it? Does it? Let's see what the Steam thing says.
I'm sorry. Could you remind me what we were discussing?
Oh, for fuck's sake. Okay, I wonder if it just happens after a certain amount.
I'm sorry. And what makes you say? Can you clarify? Could you? I'm sorry. So, what did you find out? So, what new? And how did you? Interesting. I see. And how does that relate to our current investigation? And what evidence do you have to support that claim?
I wonder if there's a
Detective?
button or something.
Interesting. Can you tell me more about that, Detective? How did you come to this conclusion?
Because I think clicking up there will probably do it, but there might be a keyboard shortcut. Whenever I've clicked here or said something, it unmarks this area, so it will probably just be responding to other keyboard commands right now. So there might be a button that I've pressed that, yeah, escape for example, goes out there. And
what kind of news do you have for me, Detective Martini? Don't keep me waiting.
Yeah, now he's given up. Yeah, we've broken him.
I'm sorry, but my name is not Darling. Is there something I can help you with? Is there something you needed to discuss with me, or are you just trying to flatter me? Thank you for the compliment, but staring at the ceiling isn't exactly a skill. Now, what brings you here today? Do you have any updates on the recent murders in Vaudeville? I cannot answer your question. I'm sorry, but I don't understand what you mean by go on. Could you please clarify your question or request? Actually, no, I'm not sure what you're referring to. Could you please be more specific and tell me what it is that you want to talk about? Detective, my dear, don't you think you have mistaken my identity? You're speaking with Chief Gretzky, the police chief of Vaudeville.
No, he's calling
Now,
me my
if you
dear.
could kindly state your business with me, we can proceed with our conversation. Well, thank you. But why do you say that? What's on your mind? That's very kind of you to say,
I think the
but may
reset
I ask
might...
what specifically makes you think that? My mustache. Yes, many people seem to be fond of it. But
I wonder
let's
how
not
aware it
focus
is
on
of
my
the
facial
model.
hair. Do you have anything else you wanted to discuss with me?
Mm.
No, do you now? Well, not many people compliment me on my mutton chops.
I knew it.
What do you like about them? I'm not quite sure what you mean. Are you saying you prefer me without my mutton chops? Thank you for noticing. But may I ask why my facial hair is the topic of our conversation? Do you have a question or concern related to the case we're working on? Alright, fair enough. So, is there anything else on your mind? My mustache again. You really do have a thing for facial hair, don't you? But go ahead. What do you want to know about my mustache? I'm Chief Gretzky. Ha, you're quite the character, detective. I've never thought of giving my mustache a name. But if you must know, let's call it Old Reliable. It's been with me through thick and thin for many years now.
Mm. Is that what two A's? T's? So, I think we should try and keep an eye on what makes it reset. To see if there's some sort of... It might be some sort of special combination of something. Cater, okay. Type him.
Well, detective,
I should
if
probably
you're
use...
going to insult my mustache by comparing it to a caterpillar, then perhaps you should examine your own facial hair. Do you have a mustache or any other type of facial hair? Or is it just envy speaking? That's an interesting thing to love, detective. What is it about caterpillars that you find so fascinating? So you think caterpillars look like my mustache? Interesting comparison. But let's get back to the case at hand, detective. Have you made any progress in your investigation? Oh, a break. What kind of break did you have? Did you come across some new information about the case? Your femur. Are you okay, detective? Did you have an accident or something? Oh, okay. So you're saying you broke your
Dave.
femur. How did that happen? It sounds like it must have been a painful experience. A confused doctor. Now, that's interesting. Can you explain more about what happened with the doctor? Did their confusion have anything to do with the case we're working on?
Mm-hmm.
I see, detective. But how did you come to have an encounter with a confused doctor? And what does this have to do with our case?
Fuck its timeline up.
And did you happen to find anything related to our case while you were at the doctor's office? Or was it just an unfortunate injury?
Mm.
Detective, why on earth would you break your own femur to get into the confused doctor's office? Is there something important that we need to know about this confused doctor? Ah, well, it's nice to know that you still have your sense of humor, even with a broken femur. But let's get back to the matter at hand, shall we? Is there anything you want to tell me about the case, or any leads that you may have discovered?
Misspoke?
You broke your lemur. Now that's quite unusual, isn't it? Can you tell me more about how you broke it? Did this happen during the course of our investigation? I'm sorry, but I'm not sure what you mean by that, detective. Can you please clarify what happened to your lemur?
Oh, god damn it.
Your lemur. Are we talking about an actual animal here? Because if so, that's quite troubling. What happened to the poor creature? Well, that's certainly an odd way to break an animal. But let's get back to the case, shall we? Have you found any new leads or information about the murders that we should be aware of? Wait, someone killed your lemur. That's terrible, but what does that have to do with our investigation? We need to focus on the case at hand, not on personal matters. Do you have anything new to report about the murders in
You
Vaudeville?
bastard.
I understand that losing a pet can be difficult, but we must stay focused on the case. Have you found any evidence that might help us solve these murders? The butler, you say. And what makes you suspect him? Do you have any concrete evidence, or is this purely speculation? Detective, that's quite a vivid and specific scenario that you've described. However, we must approach this
The way he's looking at the ceiling and this seems like he's
speculation.
he just sounds like he
Can you
has to
tell
listen
me
to this
why
all
exactly
day,
you
and this is
suspect
his
the
like
butler?
20th year on the job
Do you
with
have any concrete
idiots
evidence,
like
or
me.
is this just a hunch? While cement and concrete are both important building materials, they do have their differences. But let's get back to discussing the case. Do you have any concrete leads or evidence that could help us identify the killer?
Yeah, god damn it. I'm trying to figure out what was the thing I copy pasted for Bedford that reset it the first time. I want to see if we can trigger it, because if we can trigger it, we can avoid it. It might just be random.
That's quite an interesting fact, but what does it have to do with our current situation in Vaudeville? Are you suggesting that some sort of automated defense network is responsible?
Yeah, fuck this guy. Let's go talk to someone else. Let's go buy some groceries. Yeah, something crashed after that.
Oh, my dear, I am afraid you are mistaken. My hat has always been mine, and I have never stolen anything in my life. As to where I took it, well, that's a story for another day. Well, I must admit that I am feeling a bit blue at the moment. But you know me, I am not one to let a little sadness get in the way of my enjoyment of life. In fact, sometimes being a little down can make things more interesting. Ha, no, my dear. I am not quite sure what you mean by that. But if you must know, I am just a bit melancholy today. It's nothing to worry about, though. I'm sure I'll be back to my usual charming self in no time. Oh, my darling, I am not sure what word you are referring to. But if it's big, then it must be important. However, at the moment I'm feeling a bit down in the dumps. It's nothing to worry about, really. Just a touch of melancholy. Do you ever get like this? My dear, I am not sure what you mean by that. But if you're asking if I'm a woman who enjoys having fun and living life to the fullest, then yes, I suppose you could call me a flapper. Although at the moment, I'm not exactly in the mood for dancing or partying. Dating Popeye. How scandalous. No, I am not dating anyone at the moment. But who knows what the future may hold. Perhaps
Yeah, it
I'll meet
does.
someone who can lift me out of this funk and show me a good time. A man with his own crane. Now that's a novel idea. But no, I don't think that's what I need at the moment. What I need is a bit of excitement and adventure. Something to lift me out of this melancholy mood. Maybe a trip to Paris or Rome, or perhaps even further afield. Oh, my dear, I don't think that would be quite the adventure I had in mind. But you certainly have an active imagination. Perhaps we could find something less dangerous. Though I must admit, the thought of flying through the air like that is rather tempting. Maybe when I'm feeling more adventurous, we can give it a try. Ah, my friend, you are such an interesting character. Always coming up with new and exciting ideas. But I'm afraid that even the thought of being launched through the air by some sort of contraption is not enough to lift me out of this melancholy mood today. Maybe tomorrow, when I'm feeling more mischievous. Ha, you are quite persistent, aren't you? I suppose if we're going to go with the medieval siege engine theme, we might as well try them all. But let's save the mangonel for another day. Today, I think I'll stick to something simpler,
Mangonel?
like
Isn't it a
picking mushrooms
mangonel?
in the woods or playing bridge with some friends. Sometimes it's the simple things that can lift us out of our melancholy moods.
I'm a little sad. They should, of course, add some stuff in about the character's appearance. Like, me talking about the guy's mutton chops when he doesn't have any is kind of got, Any ideas, Ben? Very important. I'm not sure when this takes place. The policeman seemed very into AI. Oh, that killed it. Oops. Hold on. Actually... Trying to see what combination of buttons might do that. I don't think so. It's sometimes just whenever I try to type something or press a certain button or click in there, we'll just go back to the main screen. Don't know if it has anything to do with thing, but I think there might, like, escape works to put me back here, but like if I quit it just goes there. There's no like any way I can see keyboard control, so I suspect there's some sort of button that just goes back. Come on, Bertrand. David.
The second I stepped off the train into the city of Vaudeville.
Let's go, yeah. Hold right mouse button to look around.
You know, I remember when my husband and I used to take our son to the
What?
playhouse on Telegraph. He loved it so much. But now, he's all grown up and doesn't have time for his dear old mother anymore. Oh well, I suppose...
Hold on. It's like it was when I drag around, it was...
I'm sorry, I
Oh,
didn't
I'm an
quite
idiot.
catch that.
It's a microphone
Perhaps
that's on
you could
again.
speak up a bit. Or maybe you just need a good cup of tea to cheer you up.
She doesn't want to engage with that. Oh, I think she's broken. Yeah, it's done the thing where it doesn't want to...
Miss S, oh dear, it seems my kid has gotten loose again. I hope he doesn't cause too much trouble. Miss S, oh, my apologies. I'm afraid I'm not in the mood to talk about my cat right now. He's been quite a handful lately and has caused me a lot of stress. Miss S, oh, did I suppose my mind must have been wandering.
Why is
Let's not dwell on that now, shall we? How can I help with your investigation? Mrs. O, my apologies, sir.
The
Please
fuck?
forgive my mistake. It's just that with everything that's been going on lately, my thoughts are a bit scattered.
Is she
Your
saying...
question earlier about my feline friend, he goes by the name of Whiskers. But
Oh,
enough about him. Let's focus on more pressing matters.
I think
What
she's
can you tell me
starting...
about the recent killings in Vaudeville?
Why are you grilling me?
It's such a tragedy, and it has me feeling rather down.
It's like she's prefacing everything with her name here.
Oh, my apologies. It's a force of habit, really. I suppose it's because I'm so used to being addressed that way as a married woman. But let's not get bogged down in trivialities now, shall we? The recent events in Vaudeville are far more important than my marital status. I appreciate your willingness to engage in a bit of lighthearted conversation. But the matter at hand is quite serious. 3 people have lost their lives, and we need to get to the bottom of it. However, if you'd like to discuss something more lighthearted later on, perhaps over a cup of tea or a game of bridge, that could be arranged. I'm sorry if my voice sounds a bit hoarse. It's been a difficult time for me lately, what with the recent loss of my husband and all. But don't worry, I don't smoke cigars. However, if you're looking for a bit of mischief, perhaps we could sneak a few sips of brandy later on. It might help lift our spirits a bit. Oh dear, it seems you've caught me. But what's life without a little mischief? Besides, a small sip of brandy never hurt anyone. And who knows, maybe it'll help me feel a little less sad.
Oh shit, I should have asked about Whiskers.
What makes you so sure, Detective Martini? Can you provide any evidence to support your claim? I see. And how exactly does that make her a murderer? Do you have any actual evidence linking her to the murders of Marie? Detective, I understand your concern about Mrs. Potter's behavior, but we cannot accuse someone of murder without proper evidence. Do you have anything else that could link her to the murders? I see. And how did you respond to her bribe and threat, Detective? Did you accept the bribe or report it to me and follow the protocols? Excuse me, did you just say that you clubbed Mrs. Potter over the head and dumped her in the river? That is a serious accusation, and if true, it means that you have committed a crime. Can you explain why you would do something like that? And where is Mrs. Potter now? Detective, are you confessing to a crime? If so, we need to take appropriate action. And if not, please refrain from making such serious accusations against anyone without evidence. It is our duty to follow the law and protect the citizens of Vaudeville, including Mrs. Potter.
I don't know.
Please clarify what you mean by that, Detective. Are you saying that you have already taken matters into your own hands and dealt with Mrs. Potter? If so, we need to investigate this further and ensure that justice is served appropriately. I'm sorry. I'm not sure I understand what you mean by that, Detective. Could you please clarify your statement? Well, that's a very serious claim, but it's hard to believe that you would do something like that. You have always been a loyal and dedicated officer of the law in Vaudeville. However, we need to get to the bottom of this and find out what really happened to Mrs. Potter. Do you have any evidence or witnesses that could corroborate your story?
God damn it. Let's be basic.
Why would you do something like that, detective? What was your motive for killing Mrs. Potter? And how did you manage to do it without anyone noticing? This is a very serious matter, and we need to get to the truth of what happened. You killed Mrs. Potter because you wanted her hat. That seems like a rather trivial reason to commit such a heinous act, don't you think? And how did you manage to be so sneaky that nobody noticed anything? Did you have any accomplices, or were you acting alone?
God damn it.
Every single piece of evidence, you say? That's quite a bold claim, detective. But if that were true, then surely you would be able to provide us with some concrete proof of your actions and Mrs. Potter's death. Could you show me this evidence that you claim to have? A block around her feet. That's a rather specific detail,
Dear
detective.
God.
How did you manage to attach a block to Mrs. Potter's feet, and what was your purpose in doing so? And where is Mrs. Potter's body now? We need to ensure that it is given proper respect and that her family is informed of her tragic death. So let me get this straight, detective. Are you saying that you killed Mrs. Potter and then dumped her body in the river?
Now he's gonna ask other
And
things, so I
that
can't
the
just
only
say
evidence
yet.
you have is
Yes.
the block around her feet? That's quite an extraordinary claim, and one that requires concrete evidence to back it up. Have you considered turning yourself in and confessing to your actions? It might be the best course of action for everyone involved. My apologies, detective. I must have misunderstood your statement earlier. If what you're saying is true, then we need to investigate this matter further and bring justice to Mrs. Potter's family. All right, detective. If that's what you want, we can certainly book you. But before we do that, could you please explain to me exactly what happened and how it led to Mrs. Potter's death? We need to ensure that justice is served and that the truth comes out. I understand that this is a difficult situation, detective. But if you want to turn yourself in and confess to the crime, it's important that we get all the facts straight. Can you tell me more about what happened and what led you to commit such a terrible act? I am curious to know more about your thought process and motives. Hold on there, detective. Are you seriously suggesting that you plan to go and murder someone else? That's an incredibly disturbing statement to make. What would motivate you to do something like that? And who do you have in mind as your next victim? We need to get to the bottom of this and ensure that no more innocent people are hurt or killed. Is that so, detective? And why do you think we won't be able to catch you? Do you have some sort of plan in place, or do you feel like there's just nothing we can do to stop you? It sounds like there's more going on here than meets the eye. Excuse me, detective. Did you just say that you intend to sleep with my grandmother? That's an incredibly disrespectful and inappropriate thing to say. What could possibly make you think that such language and behavior are acceptable? And why would you want to harm an elderly woman in such a way? This conversation has taken a disturbing turn, and it's time for you to leave.
Uh.
Detective, what on earth are you talking about? It's highly inappropriate to talk about someone's grandmother in such vulgar terms. And as for your claim that everyone has slept with her, that's simply not true. My grandmother was a respected member of our community, and she would never engage in such behavior. Your attempt to insult me by targeting my family members is both misguided and immature. Let's focus on the matter at hand, shall we?
Fucking dickhead.
I'm sorry, but this conversation has become extremely inappropriate and offensive. As a police chief, it's my duty to uphold the law and ensure that everyone in our community feels safe and respected. Your comments about my grandmother are completely out of line and have no place in a civilized conversation. If you have information relevant to the case we are discussing, please share it with me now. Otherwise, it's time for you to leave the station immediately. Detective, let me be clear. If there is evidence that suggests that you are a murderer with intent to kill again,
Hasn't
we'll
fucked us
take
for a while.
appropriate action to ensure that justice is served. But until we have concrete evidence linking you to the murders in Vaudeville, we cannot simply assume that you are guilty.
God damn it.
As for your comment about leaving, yes, that's exactly what I'm telling you to do. Your behavior has been highly inappropriate and disrespectful, and it's time for this conversation to come to an end. Sorry, but that's not appropriate considering the current state of affairs.
Fucking
We need to
murder.
focus on the case and bring those responsible to justice. However, if you have any relevant information or leads that could help us in our investigation, feel free to share them with me now. That's an interesting question, but it has nothing to do with the current case we're discussing.
What an ass.
Do you have any information that could help us find the culprit behind the
He's
recent
sour
murders
now.
in Vaudeville?
God damn it. Still don't know what the fuck the right mouse button to look around thing is. It doesn't happen.
Of course, Harriet Dubois. But may I ask why you're suddenly changing your name? Does this have any relevance to the case we're discussing, or is it simply a personal preference of yours? Disco, you say? Interesting. And what exactly does feeling disco entail, Harriet Dubois? Does it have any relevance to the recent murders in Vaudeville? Or are you simply in the mood for some music and dancing? As a police chief, my priority is to solve this case and ensure the safety of our community. If you have any information or leads that... Harriet Dubois, are you feeling alright? You seem to be making some strange comments and facial expressions. Is there something specific you want to discuss with me regarding
Yeah,
the
it doesn't
case
work
we're
for me.
working on?
I hold it down and it gets stuck. Maybe it's because I'm in a resolution where I can see the entire scene or something. Huh.
If you think you're having a stroke, we need to get you medical attention right away. Please, sit down and try to relax while we call for an ambulance. Can you tell me where it hurts or what symptoms you're experiencing? We want to make sure we get you the help you need as soon as possible. What do you mean, you die? Are you saying that you're dying right now? Please, tell me more about what's happening and how we can help you. What do you mean by that, Dubois? Are you saying that you're in immediate danger or experiencing a medical emergency? We cannot ignore this situation, as it could potentially escalate and put other people at risk.
Yes, the
Please, try to
cascading
give me
strokes.
more detail. I'm not sure I understand, Mr. Dubois. What exactly are you trying to say? Can you please clarify your statement and provide some context? Mr. Dubois, are you still with us? Can you hear my voice?
Oh god, he's
It's important
idling.
that we get some clarity. Well, alright then. But before you go, can you at least confirm whether or not you have any information about the recent murders in Vaudeville?
This
We're
fucking
doing
guy.
everything we can to
I'm
solve
dying.
this case and bring the perpetrator to
Yeah, before
justice.
you go, do you
Any
can
help
you
or insight you could provide would be greatly appreciated. My apologies, miss. May I ask why you felt the need to conceal your gender previously? Does this have any bearing on the case we're currently investigating, or is it a personal matter? We're here to help you and get to the bottom of this situation, so any information you can provide... Excuse me, ma'am. What are you referring to? Can you clarify your statement? I'm sorry, but no, I don't like talking about this. Well, that's interesting. Can you give me any details about the case or your involvement in it? We're doing everything we can to solve these murders and bring justice to the victims and their families. Any information or... I'm sorry, ma'am, but I'm not sure how that's relevant to the case we're investigating. Can you please stick to discussing the facts and providing
Got
any
this guy.
information you may have about the recent murders?
I don't know
in
why I can't look
Vaudeville?
around. Is there anywhere specific you drag? Because this isn't the demo. This is the early access thing. Guess that, Brian. Not included in the demo. Fantastic. Cannot accuse anyone.
Oh, these. No, they're not doilies. They're actually lace gloves that I got from a vintage shop down the street. I thought they added a
Gloves.
nice touch to my outfit today. Oops, my apologies. I must have misspoken. No, I'm not wearing gloves right now. But hey, if you're looking for a good pair, I know just the place to find some stylish ones. Have you ever been to that little boutique on Main Street?
Oops.
Sure thing, Detective Martini. I'm happy to call you by your first name. It's nice to have someone new to talk to in this city. How are you finding Vaudeville so far? Absolutely, my apologies. I'm glad to have met you, Ingrid. You seem like a great person. So, what brings you here to this bar? Is there something in particular you wanted to discuss with me?
Hmm.
That is not something I can do.
Dubois.
No, of course not. Why would you even think that? I'm just a ballerina trying to make it in this city. I was friends with Haley, one of the victims, and her death has really shaken me up. I just want to help find the person responsible for these terrible crimes. Haley, she was amazing. She had such a passion for dance and she worked so hard to perfect her craft. I remember when she first started out, she would practice for hours every day and never gave up. It's such a tragedy
Yeah,
that
unless
she's
they
no
use
longer with us.
rifles. Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
I find that hard to believe, Detective. I knew her as a woman named Haley Greenwood, and I don't see any reason why she would lie about something like that. Regardless of her name, she was a talented dancer and a wonderful friend. I miss her dearly. Yes, she was. It's amazing to see how people can express themselves through dance. For me, it's always been a way to escape the world around me and let my emotions come out in a physical form. Have you ever tried dancing, Detective? It's quite liberating. Haha, no, not exactly.
Yeah,
Although, I
probably.
suppose if the social interaction was particularly awkward, a good dance session could certainly help lift your spirits. But really, dancing is about so much more than that. It's a way to express yourself and connect with others on a deeper level. Plus, it's great exercise. You should try it sometime, Detective. Who knows, you might surprise yourself with how much you enjoy it. Not at all, Detective. There are all kinds of ways to express yourself, even if you don't have the use of your legs. Dance is certainly one form of expression, but it's not the only one. People who have
Very
disabilities
fine.
can find other avenues to explore their creativity and connect with others. It's all about finding what works for you and making the most of what you have. Do you know anyone with a disability, Detective?
I guess.
Sell my legs. No way, Detective. As a dancer, my legs are everything to me. They're what allow me to express myself through movement and connect with the audience in a powerful way. Plus, they're pretty good looking if I do say so myself. But seriously, my legs are a part of who I am and what I love about myself. Why on earth would I want to sell them? Sorry, Detective, but I'm afraid that's not something I would ever consider doing. My arms are just as
Not
important
really.
to me as my legs. They allow me to move with grace and precision, to communicate with my fellow dancers, and to create beautiful art through the lines and
Yes,
shapes of
very
my
strange
body.
conversation.
Without my arms, I wouldn't be able to pursue my dreams as a ballerina. But let's talk about something else, shall we? How about you? What do you like to do in your free time? Detective, you really know how to keep me on my toes. But in all seriousness, buying and selling limbs sounds like a pretty gruesome business. Is that something you enjoy doing? Personally, I prefer to use my talents in a more positive way, helping people, spreading joy through dance, and connecting with others on a deeper level. Life is too short to waste it on dark and destructive pursuits. Don't you agree? Oh, Detective, you really crack me up. It's always a pleasure talking to someone with such a great sense of humor. But let's stay focused on the matter at hand, okay? We're here to talk about Haley and her tragic death. Do you have any new leads or information that might help us get closer to finding the killer? Well, that's an interesting offer, but I think I'll pass this time, Detective. As a dancer, my feet are pretty important to me, even if they're not always the prettiest things in the world.
Pretty
But
fancy
hey,
bot.
if you ever need any advice on how to take care of your feet or improve your dancing skills, just let me know. I'm always happy to share my knowledge and help out a friend. Absolutely, Detective. Happy to help. Foot care is really important for dancers and non-dancers alike. Here are some tips that might be helpful.
Oh god.
1. Stretch your feet and toes regularly to improve flexibility and prevent cramping. 2. Use a foam roller or massage ball to roll out the muscles in your feet and relieve tension. 3. Wear properly fitting shoes with good arch support, especially if you're on your feet a lot. 4. Soak your feet in warm water with Epsom salt or essential oils to soothe sore muscles and moisturize dry skin. I'm afraid there's no such thing as unessential oils, Detective. Essential oils are called that because they contain the essence of a plant or other natural substance. They're used in aromatherapy and other holistic practices to promote relaxation, reduce stress, and improve overall health and wellness. If you're interested in trying them out, I'd be happy to recommend some blends that might be helpful for you. But remember, it's always important to use essential oils safely and responsibly. They're powerful substances that should be used with care. Crude oil. That's definitely a new one, Detective. But I'm pretty sure that's not something you want to be soaking your feet in. Crude oil is a fossil fuel that's used for things like gasoline and heating oil. It's definitely not something you want to be putting on your skin. Stick with the essential oils and other natural remedies, and you'll be on your
Fucking
way to
scammer
happy,
lady.
healthy feet in no time. While it might seem challenging to dance without legs, there are actually many ways to express yourself through movement
Come on
even if
again.
you have a disability.
Fruit.
There are adaptive dance
And
programs
tell.
that cater specifically to people with physical disabilities, where you can learn techniques and choreography that work for your individual needs. And even if you don't have access to such a program, there are still ways to explore movement and expression in your own unique way through gestures, facial expressions, and other forms of nonverbal communication. Detective, that's not a very funny joke. Making light of disabilities is never okay, and it's important to be respectful and empathetic towards people who may be facing
God damn it.
challenges that we can't even imagine. As someone who loves dance and movement, it breaks my heart to think that someone might not be able to experience the joy and freedom of expression that comes with dancing. But instead of making jokes or being dismissive, let's focus on how we can support and uplift those who may be facing obstacles in their lives. Actually, it's not made up at all. There are many people in the world who face challenges with physical disabilities or other limitations that might make dancing more difficult. But that doesn't mean they can't find ways to express themselves through movement and creativity. It's important to be open-minded and inclusive, and to celebrate the unique talents and abilities of everyone around us. So let's focus on what we can do to support each other and lift each other up, rather than tearing each other down or making unfounded assumptions. Sorry, but that's not something I'm interested in, Detective. As a dancer, my body is my instrument, and it's important to treat it with respect and care. But if you're interested in learning more about dance or movement, there are plenty of other ways we can explore that together, from attending a performance to taking a dance class or even just having a conversation about what dance means to us. Let's focus on the positive and uplifting aspects of movement and creativity, rather than making jokes or inappropriate comments. Wow, that's quite a question, Detective. But no, I've never been a member of the Communist Party or any other political organization. As a dancer and artist, my focus is on creating beauty and expressing myself through movement. Of course, it's important to be aware of the political and social issues that affect us all. But ultimately, my goal is to bring joy and inspiration to audiences through my art. So let's leave politics aside for now and focus on the things that bring us together, like our shared love of dance and creativity. I'm sorry, but I don't think communism is the right path for me, Detective. As someone who values individual freedom and creativity, I believe in the power of free markets and democratic societies to foster innovation and progress. Of course, there are always challenges and inequalities
that how you
that need
spell
to be
it?
addressed. But I don't think that communism is the answer. Instead, let's focus on finding ways to support each other and work towards a more just and equitable society, one that values diversity, inclusivity, and mutual respect. Of course, comrade. It's always great to meet someone who shares my passion for social justice and equality. Whether we're fighting against systemic
Dear
oppression or
God.
working to build a more sustainable future. There's so much we can accomplish when we come together and work towards a common goal. So let's keep fighting the good fight, comrade, and let's never forget that every small step we take towards progress is a step in the right direction. Comrade, if by communism you mean a shared commitment to building a better world for everyone,
Is a communist.
then count me in. But let's not get too hung up on labels or ideologies. What's important is that we are both passionate about creating positive change and making the world a better place. And who knows? Maybe our shared values will lead us down unexpected paths and towards exciting new opportunities for growth and transformation. So let's keep pushing forward together, comrade. There's no limit to what we can accomplish when we join forces.
Yeah.
That's an interesting question, comrade. To be honest, I'm not sure if Miss S. Potter is a dancer or not. But regardless of whether she has formal training or not, I believe that everyone has the capacity
God,
to express
this
themselves
lady.
through movement and creativity. Whether it's through dance, music,
Oh,
art,
these-
or any other form of expression, we all have something valuable to share with the world, and it's up to each of us to find our own unique voice and use it to make a positive impact.
Yeah, let's figure this out. Oh, for fuck's sake. That's not her. Ugh. No. Where was it?
I'm afraid I cannot be dead, as I am currently speaking with you. However, the body we are examining is indeed deceased. It's always a summer reminder of the fragility of life, isn't it? Yes, Detective, the victim is certainly deceased. There is no doubt about that. The medical evidence indicates that the victim suffered a fatal wound to the neck caused by a sharp object. The damage to the cervical vertebrae and spinal cord is consistent with this type of injury. It's unfortunate, but it's our duty to investigate and determine what happened to bring justice for the victim and their loved ones.
I think I'm supposed to be able to turn the camera around to see that stuff.
Based on the available medical evidence, there is no doubt that the victim is deceased. The signs of lividity, rigor mortis, and the absence of vital signs indicate that the body has been without blood flow for some time. Additionally, there are no reflexes or responses to stimuli. It's a sad reality that we must face in this line of work. It's understandable
Fucking
to feel
concrete.
uneasy in situations like this, detective. Sometimes, the muscles of a deceased person may twitch due to a post-mortem phenomenon known as cadaveric spasm. It's important to remain calm and remember that we are here to gather information and clues about what led to this tragedy. I'm sorry to hear about your uncle, but in medical terms, the scenario you're describing is highly unlikely. Cadaveric spasms are typically involuntary muscle contractions that occur after death and are limited to a specific set of muscles. They're not strong enough to enable a deceased person to move or perform complex actions such as going to work. However, there have been documented cases of people experiencing hallucinations or delusions related to their loved ones after their passing. Perhaps that may be what's at play here. As a medical professional, it's important to acknowledge the emotional toll that death can take on families and loved ones. While we cannot speak to your personal situation, if you believe that your deceased uncle has somehow returned to life, there may be an underlying medical condition at play. We recommend seeking the advice of a qualified medical practitioner
Very dry,
who can
this
assess
lady.
your
Also,
uncle's
this is the
condition and
same
provide
fucking
appropriate treatment or
wall
support.
background. See if it remembers he's dead.
It can be challenging to persuade someone to seek medical attention, especially in situations where they may be experiencing a delusion. You may want to approach the conversation with empathy and understanding while also providing information about the potential risks of not seeking medical attention. In some cases, offering to go with them or helping them find a healthcare provider can also be helpful.
Yeah.
Ultimately,
I
we want to ensure
this
that your
is
loved one
not even
receives
in
the
early
care and
access
support
yet,
they
so
need.
just getting the base system working before making a bunch of fancy backgrounds that you have to remake before launch anyway makes sense.
While extremely rare, there have been documented cases of individuals who have experienced a temporary cessation of vital signs, such as in cases of hypothermia or drowning. In these situations, the body may exhibit signs of lividity and rigor mortis, but the individual may still be alive. However, in most cases where there are no vital signs or reflexes present, the individual has passed away. If you have concerns about someone's health or well-being, we always recommend seeking medical attention immediately. No, detective, as a coroner, my field of expertise is limited to the examination of human remains. The concept of attacked dragon soul is not one that falls within the scope of my practice. However, if there were any medical or anatomical components associated with such a creature, they would be subject to the same types of investigation and analysis that we use in our examinations. No, detective, I am not a robot. I am a medical professional who has dedicated my life to understanding the intricacies of the human body and the effects of death. That being said, there is no denying that technology has played an increasingly important role in our field. From advanced imaging techniques to computerized data analysis, we rely on a wide range of tools and technologies to help us better understand the mysteries of life and death. Detective, I assure you that I am not a robot. However, even if one were to exist, they would still be subject to the same principles of medical science and human physiology that apply to all living beings. Our understanding of anatomy and the effects of death is rooted in centuries of scientific inquiry and discovery, and we continue to build upon that knowledge with each new case we examine. I can understand why you might feel uncertain, but the principles of medical science are based on a deep understanding of human anatomy and physiology. We may not have all the answers yet, but we continue to build upon our knowledge with each new breakthrough and discovery. In my experience, the key to unlocking these mysteries lies in being observant, analytical. That is true, a robot does not have medical anatomy in the same way that a human does. However, if a robotic life form were to exist, they would still be subject to the laws of physics and our current understanding of how the body works. Moreover, any robotic life form would likely need to be examined to determine whether they could even be considered a living being in the first place.
Neat.
Ultimately, this is an area where science and philosophy intersect, and one that we will likely continue to ponder for many years to come. My name is pronounced Xtbhria, and I appreciate you asking, Detective. It's important to take the time to understand and correctly pronounce people's names, especially in my line of work where attention to detail is critical. Speaking of attention to detail, I want to assure you that we will do everything we can to get to the bottom of this case and bring those responsible to justice. The loss of life is always a tragedy, and our thoughts are with the families and loved ones of those affected by these crimes. Well, the body has certainly seen better days. As a medical professional, I can tell you that the victim suffered significant trauma to the head and neck, likely caused by a sharp object. The resulting injuries were severe enough to cause death, and unfortunately, there was little we could do to save them. Our focus now must be on determining what happened and bringing those responsible to justice. I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understand your question. When someone dies, it means that
my
all of their
fucking E key
bodily
is being
functions have
asked.
ceased, including those of the lower half of the body. Death occurs when the heart stops beating and blood flow to the brain and other organs.
This reminds me of that time Carl
It's important to
Pilkington
remember
called
that
some
death is a
fucking
natural part of life, but it can be
aquarium
difficult for
scientist
those left
lady
behind
to
come
ask if they
terms
could get
with.
rid of
If
jellyfish.
someone you know
She was
needs
kind of
support
like,
during
oh
this
god
difficult
damn it.
time, there are
Like this
resources
ass.
available to help.
Let's ask some Flad news and see how it will respond to that. I should try this investigation stuff as well.
I'm sorry, but I'm not sure how to respond to what you just said. It doesn't seem to be related to our discussion about the case at hand. As a medical professional, it's important for me to remain focused on
dear
the task
God.
at hand and provide accurate and helpful information. If there's something specific you'd like me to address regarding the case, please let me know and I'll do my best to assist you. It's important to remember that a cadaver is a deceased individual who is no longer capable of experiencing emotions or sensations. While it may be possible to physically move or manipulate the body, there is no way to intimidate or otherwise interact with the person who once inhabited it. As medical professionals, our focus is on treating the living and providing care and compassion to those affected by death. If you or someone you know needs support during this difficult time, please don't hesitate to reach out for help.
Is my key fucking up?
While intimidation may be effective in certain situations, it's important to remember that there is no benefit to intimidating a cadaver. Respectfully, Detective, there's no need to intimidate a deceased individual.
Oh, he just froze there for a little bit?
Detective, please remember that the deceased individual is not capable of looking at you or anyone else. The body is simply a vessel for the person who once inhabited it and now they have passed on. Respectfully,
got black,
detective, there's no need to be intimidated by the cadaver. The look
nail
you're
polish.
perceiving is likely just a result of the positioning of the head and facial features due to the trauma sustained. My job as a coroner is to examine the evidence and determine what happened to the victim. But it's important that we approach this work with professionalism and respect for all parties involved. Based on the initial examination, the victim's body appears to have all of the major organs present and accounted for. However, further testing and analysis will be necessary to determine if there are any underlying medical conditions or other factors that may have contributed to their death. As a coroner, it's important for me to approach each case with an open mind and a thorough understanding of anatomy and physiology. Our goal is to provide answers and closure for the families and loved ones of those affected by these tragedies.
Oh, thank God.
As a medical professional, it's important for me to approach each case with a thorough understanding of anatomy and
I wonder
physiology.
if he's a medical
The
professional.
human body has several major organs, including the heart, lungs, liver, kidneys, and brain, among others. Each of these organs plays a critical role in maintaining the body's overall health and function. When someone passes away, we examine their body carefully to determine if any of these organs were. As a medical professional, it's important for me to approach each case with a thorough understanding of anatomy and physiology. In this particular case, the victim's body has all of the major organs present and accounted for. Our focus now is on determining what happened and providing answers for those affected by this tragedy. Of course, my apologies for any confusion. To answer your question, the human body has several vital internal organs, including the heart, lungs, liver, kidneys, and brain. All of these are necessary for life and function. As a medical professional, it's important for me to be thorough in my examination of the body. The human body has many organs, each with its own unique function and purpose.
Just give me a number.
In this particular case, the initial examination indicates that all of the major organs are present and appear to be intact. Certainly, as a coroner, it's my job to examine the deceased individual and provide accurate information about their condition. Based on my preliminary findings, the victim appears to have all of the standard internal and external organ systems that one would expect in a healthy adult. This includes the heart, lungs, liver, kidneys, and so on. If you have specific questions about the anatomy or physiology of the deceased individual, please let me know and I'll do my best to provide you with accurate information. Respectfully, the lungs of the deceased individual cannot be sold or used for any purpose other than medical research or transplantation. The lungs, like all of the body's vital organs, play a critical role in maintaining life and cannot be removed or harvested without proper consent and medical procedures. Our focus now must be on determining what happened to the victim and bringing those responsible to justice. If you have any further questions about the case or the role of a coroner, please don't hesitate to ask. Thank you for asking. In my line of work, we're constantly confronted with the reality of death and its impact on those around us. It can be a difficult and emotionally taxing job at times, but ultimately, our goal is to provide answers and closure for the families and loved ones of those affected by these tragedies.
What was the dancer called again? I forget.
Despite
Ingrid.
the challenges, I find my work to be incredibly rewarding and feel privileged to have the opportunity to help people in this way.
Why is my E key doing that?
I'm sorry, but that's not medically or ethically feasible. Transplantation is a complex and highly regulated process that requires the consent of the donor and recipient, as well as careful screening and matching to ensure compatibility. Additionally, the legs of the deceased individual cannot be used for transplantation without proper consent and medical procedures. I'm sorry, but that is not a possibility. The idea of transplanting limbs from one person to another is not only unethical, but it's also legal. Additionally, the spare legs you mentioned are not actually spare parts that we could use for such a purpose.
She's pretty good
They're
with it.
simply part of the cadaver's anatomy and serve no practical function outside of the body. It's important to remember that our job as coroners is to examine the evidence
damn
and
it.
determine what caused the death of the person in question, not to engage in speculative or inappropriate discussions about their body or organs. I'm sorry, but that's not a medically feasible option. Formula One wheels are designed for high-speed racing and would not be suitable for use in a human body. Additionally, the human legs serve a complex and vital role in maintaining balance, mobility, and overall health. Any attempt to replace them with non-biological materials would likely result in serious complications and impairments. It's important to remember that our focus as medical professionals is on providing compassionate care and treatment to those in need, not engaging in speculative or inappropriate discussions about the human body or its functions. While the idea of having Formula One wheels for legs may seem appealing in some ways, it's important to remember that our bodies are highly complex and sophisticated biological systems. Our muscles, bones, and organs all work together in a delicate balance to support our physical functions and overall health. Any attempt to replace or modify these structures with non-biological materials would likely lead to significant complications and impairments. It's important that we approach these discussions with sensitivity and respect for the human body and its functions.
What's wrong with my E key?
Rocket fingers is not a medical condition that we recognize in the field of anatomy and physiology. It's important to remember that our bodies are complex biological systems that require careful attention and care to maintain optimal health and function. If you have concerns about your own health or well-being, it's important to speak with a qualified medical professional who can provide you with personalized advice and treatment options.
Oh yeah.
We are here to help people understand the reality of death and its effects, but we also want to encourage everyone to take care of themselves and their bodies in the best way possible. It's understandable that you might be concerned about the state of my nails, but please rest assured that they are not indicative of gout or any other medical condition. In fact, black nails can be a common occurrence in the field of forensic pathology due to the nature of our work and exposure to various chemicals and substances. It's important for us to take all necessary precautions to protect ourselves and others from potential hazards. But unfortunately, this can sometimes have unintended effects on our physical appearance. Nonetheless, we remain committed to providing compassionate care and accurate information to those affected by death and its aftermath.
What do we ask her?
Well, every person's death is unique and carries its own set of challenges and complexities. From my experience, there's no one-size-fits-all answer to that question. In my line of work, we encounter a wide range of circumstances and causes for death. From natural causes to accidents to intentional acts. Each case requires careful investigation and analysis to determine
I want to know
exactly
the deadest.
what happened and why.
God damn it.
Regardless of the circumstances, however, every death represents a significant loss for
damn it.
someone somewhere. Our job as medical professionals is to provide accurate information and compassionate care to those affected. Yes, as a coroner, my role is to examine the bodies of the deceased and determine the cause and manner of death.
God damn it.
It can be a challenging and emotionally taxing job at times, but ultimately, our goal is to help bring answers and closure to the families and loved ones of those affected by these tragedies. Every cadaver we encounter is unique in its own way, with its own story to tell. As medical professionals, we strive to treat each case. As a coroner, my job is to examine the body and determine the cause and manner of death. In most cases, the individual is already deceased before the autopsy takes place.
In most cases?
However, there are rare instances where a person may be in a state of clinical death or near death when they arrive at the hospital or morgue. In these cases, medical professionals may attempt to resuscitate them before proceeding with an autopsy or other procedures.
Before, so they're going to do
Regardless
it
of the
anyway after they
circumstances,
resuscitate
our
them.
focus as medical professionals is always on providing compassionate care and accurate information to those affected by death and its aftermath. Please understand that we take our duties as medical professionals very seriously, and our primary goal is always to provide accurate and compassionate care to those affected by death.
Dear God.
The cadaver in question was deceased before the autopsy took place, and our job was to carefully examine the body and determine the cause and manner of death. We employ a range of diagnostic tools and techniques to gather information about the individual's condition and circumstances leading up to their passing. However, it's important to remember that every case is unique and there are often complex factors
God damn
involved
it.
that can affect our understanding of what happened. That's a common misconception, but in reality,
Yeah.
autopsies are performed on individuals who have already passed away, and therefore cannot be the cause of death. However, we do understand that the process of autopsy can be difficult for some people to witness or
I mean,
comprehend.
it's sort of like detached
and we
medical
always strive
thing.
to
It
provide
kind of works for
compassionate
her.
and respectful.
Did we break her? Or did I not spell it correctly? Yes, he broke. Okay.
Well, the body can die from many causes, such as trauma, disease, or natural causes.
No, you fucker.
Sometimes it's sudden, and other times it's a gradual process. But in the end, death is inevitable for all of us. It's a natural part of life, and we must learn to accept it. I apologize for the confusion earlier. Haley Greenwood died due to blunt force head trauma, likely caused by a stiletto shoe, judging from the fragments found on her head. It's a tragic and senseless way to go. As a coroner, I've seen many cases like this, but it never gets any easier. As a medical professional, my preference for the type of shoe is irrelevant. However, as a person who cares about the victims of these crimes and their families, it's heartbreaking to see someone lose their life in such a brutal way. It's important that we find justice for Haley and bring closure to her loved ones. It's too early to say for sure, but based on the evidence we have, it's possible that a woman could have been responsible for Haley's death. However, we can't jump to any conclusions until we have all the facts. It's my job to analyze the evidence and provide an accurate report to assist in the investigation. Based on the state of the body and the level of decomposition, it's estimated that Haley had been dead for approximately 24 to 48 hours before she was found. It's a tragic loss of life, and my heart goes out to her family and loved ones. The sooner we can find out who's responsible for this heinous act, the better. While it's not common for men to wear stilettos, there's no medical reason why they couldn't. However, in the context of our conversation, I sense that you might be feeling some discomfort or uncertainty about this case. Please know that you have my full support and that we will do everything in our power to find out what happened to Haley and bring justice to her family. Wearing stilettos is a personal choice, and there's nothing inherently wrong with that. However, in the context of this case, we need to focus on finding out who was responsible for Haley's death. It's important to remember that every person is unique and deserves to be treated with respect and dignity,
Oh dear God.
regardless of their lifestyle choices or appearance. My role is to remain objective and impartial in my analysis of the evidence, but please know that my thoughts are with Haley's loved ones during this difficult time. My choice of footwear is not particularly relevant to our
Absolutely
discussion,
is.
but for the sake of answering your question. I usually wear comfortable shoes that allow me to move around easily during an autopsy. The most important thing is that the shoes provide adequate support and protection for my feet and are easy to clean and disinfect. Oh, apologies. Outside of work, when not in professional attire, comfort is still a priority for me. So you may find me in some comfortable sneakers or flats. But please remember that our focus should be on investigating the tragic death of Haley Greenwood and finding justice for her and her loved ones.
I like that it sort of keeps the thread a little bit sometimes, but other times it loses it when it shouldn't. It's pretty neat. Fucking
But
E.
could you please clarify what you mean by that term? If you're referring to forensic evidence related to feet, then yes, shoe impressions and footwear marks can be important in establishing a suspect's involvement in a crime. But we need to ensure that we have all the facts before jumping to conclusions. Every aspect of the investigation needs to be conducted thoroughly, and every piece of evidence considered carefully. The loss of life is always a tragedy. I understand that you are trying to establish whether stiletto shoes could have caused Haley's injuries. From a medical perspective, any object with sufficient force and sharpness could potentially cause cranial intrusion. However, we need to consider all of the evidence before drawing any conclusions about what may have caused Haley's injuries. I know this is a difficult and emotional
God damn, I
time for
hit her.
everyone involved, and I want to assure you that we will do everything in our power to find out what happened and bring justice to those who have been affected by this tragedy.
It's asked that they keep repeating that and sometimes have lines after that whole spiel when you want to quit, skip it, that you might not have heard before. I think it's sort of, if you have a sentence where it has more things it wants to comment on, it does it in different bits.
It's difficult to say for certain without examining all of the available evidence. But theoretically, someone could cause cranial intrusion with their bare foot if they had enough force behind their strike. However, we need to consider all of the evidence before making any conclusions about what may have happened. As a medical professional, I'm committed to providing accurate and impartial information to assist in this investigation.
Fuck's sake.
That's a valid point. The amount of force required to penetrate the skull would depend on the size and shape of the object used. A bare foot, for example, is not as sharp as a stiletto heel, so it would require more force to cause cranial intrusion. We also need to
Pretty
take into
impressed with
account
this
the
in general.
location and angle of impact and whether there were any other contributing factors such as bone density or pre-existing medical conditions. This is why a thorough investigation and analysis of all available evidence is so important in cases like this.
Fuck's sake.
Based on the evidence from the autopsy, Haley's skull appeared to be within normal limits of bone density and thickness. In other words, her skull was not notably harder or softer than average. The cranial fractures she sustained were consistent with the force and angle of impact from a blunt object such as a stiletto shoe or similar. However, we need to analyze all of the available evidence before coming to a definitive conclusion about what may have caused her injuries. The thickness and density of the skull can affect how much force is required to cause cranial injury. However, even individuals with a relatively thick skull can sustain fatal injuries under certain circumstances. Depending on the location
No, wait, it was in
and
the
angle
neck,
of
wasn't it? It
impact,
wasn't
as
even the
well as
skull.
other factors such as the force of the blow. In Haley's case, the fractures she sustained were extensive and likely to have been fatal regardless of her skull's thickness or density. As a medical professional, it's always difficult for me to discuss cases involving tragic loss of life. It's hard to say for sure. A person with a thicker or more robust cranium may be more resistant to blunt trauma. But there
This
are
is
many
pretty
variables to
impressive.
consider. The amount of pressure and the specific area of the head that was impacted could also play a significant role in determining the outcome of an incident like this. Additionally, any pre-existing health conditions or medications could potentially increase or decrease an individual's likelihood of survival. While theoretically possible, penetrating someone's skull with your finger would require a significant amount of force and is unlikely to occur in most circumstances. Weakness
there's
in
some
the bone
gold for the
structure of
bots
skull can make
actually
it more
going on
susceptible to
here.
trauma. But there are many factors at play when considering cranial injuries. Regardless of an individual's physical makeup, they deserve our respect and compassion. This is a challenging time
Fucking
for everyone
Cro-Magnon.
involved, and we need to focus on finding answers and justice for Haley's family and loved ones. As a medical professional, I cannot speculate on Haley's genetic makeup or ancestry. However, based on our examination of her remains, there were no indications of any abnormalities in her cranial structure or bone density. Her injuries were consistent with blunt force trauma from a stiletto shoe or similar object. Our focus should be on finding out what happened to Haley and bringing those responsible to justice. Although animal attacks are not unheard of, in Haley's case, the nature and extent of her injuries suggest blunt trauma from a human-caused incident. Bite marks and other indications of an animal attack were not present on her body. Additionally, the fragments found on her skull were consistent with a stiletto shoe or similar object rather than animal claws or teeth. Our focus should be on determining what happened to Haley and bringing justice to her and her loved ones. I understand that you may be trying to lighten the mood, but this is not an appropriate time for jokes. We're dealing with serious matters here, and we need to remain focused on finding out what happened to Haley and bringing those responsible to justice. From our examination of her remains, there were no indications of avian-related injuries or any other abnormalities in her cranial structure or bone density. I'm sorry, but that scenario seems highly unlikely. While it's important to consider all possible... Interesting. Blunt force trauma can occur from a variety of sources, including animal attacks and projectile objects. In some cases, such injuries can be quite severe and potentially life-threatening. Depending on the location and severity of impact, it is possible for a bird or other object moving at high speed to inflict significant cranial injury in certain circumstances. We need to continue our investigation and analyze all available evidence to determine what may have caused Haley's injuries and bring justice
It's
to her
weird
loved
because
ones.
this character is sort of like, I think they were going for the sort of detached coroner thing, but she keeps saying that, oh, my heart and I feel for things. They should just It's fucking E. Oh, there it goes again. And it also means it resets the conversation.
I am not quite sure what you mean by Woodman. but I do live in the Blackwoods and have been entrusted with the duty of protecting it. I see. Well, you could say that I am like the guardian spirit of the Blackwoods. It is my responsibility to ensure that the forest remains safe and protected. But please do not be afraid, for I am also here to help those in need. Is there anything specific you require assistance with? My dear, it is not customary for me to wear shoes. As a protector of the Blackwoods, my feet have become accustomed to the rough terrain and are tough enough to withstand any thorns or rocks that may come my way. But why do you ask about my footwear? Do you have a particular interest in shoes? Oh my, no, I have never lost any shoes or embedded them in anyone's cranium. You see, as a protector of the Blackwoods, it is important for me to maintain peace and harmony in all situations. Violence is never the answer, and it goes against everything that I stand for. But tell me, what brings you to the Blackwoods today? Is there something specific you are searching for? Dear, that is quite an inappropriate and disrespectful thing to say. As a protector of the Blackwoods, it is not within my nature to engage in such activities. However, if you are in need of guidance or assistance, please do not hesitate to ask. And perhaps we can find a more appropriate way for me to assist you. You're welcome, my dear. But please, do not call me Dodo. It is not a very pleasant name, and it makes me feel quite insecure. Instead, you can call me by my proper name, which is Dada. Now, was there anything else that you needed assistance with? That's all right, my dear. But please, let us focus on more meaningful conversation. Perhaps you would like to learn about the flora and fauna that inhabit the Blackwoods. Or perhaps there is a lesson that I can teach you about the importance of respecting nature and living in harmony with those around us. Whatever it may be, just know that I am always here to help and guide you in any way that I can. I'm sorry, but your question is quite inappropriate and disrespectful. As a protector of the Blackwoods, it is important for me to uphold a certain level of dignity and respectability. It is not appropriate to speak of such vulgar matters. Is there anything else I can assist you with in a more respectful manner? I'm sorry, but I'm not quite sure what a kender is. However, if it is something important to you, perhaps you could tell me more about it. It's always fascinating to learn about new things and broaden our horizons. I'm sorry, but I must clarify that I am not actually a hobbit. While they are fictional creatures from the works of J.R.R. Tolkien, I am very much real.
Is he moving away slowly?
Forest. However, if it brings you joy to imagine me as such, then by all means continue to do so. Just remember to always treat nature and its inhabitants with respect and kindness. I'm sorry, but once again, I must correct you. While Frodo is a beloved character from Tolkien's works, he is not who I am. As a protector of the Blackwoods, it is important for me to be recognized by my proper name, which is Dada. But please, do not feel bad for your mistake. It happens to all of us sometimes. Instead, let us continue our conversation and perhaps learn something new together. While it is true that Frodo is a beloved character from J.R.R. Tolkien's works, and while we may share some similarities, such as a desire to protect and preserve the natural world around us, let me assure you that my name is in fact Dada. And while it may seem like a small thing, using someone's correct name can go a long way in showing respect and kindness towards them. So let us focus on the present moment and the beauty of the Blackwoods around us, rather than getting caught up in fictional characters or mistaken identities. Of course, McClunky. But may I ask why you prefer to be referred to as such? Is there a particular reason or meaning behind the name? As someone who values communication and understanding, I am always interested to learn more about the people and creatures around. My dear, please do not speak of death in such a manner. Life is precious.
Is he
and
just
every
slowly
moment
moving
we have is a
backwards?
gift to be cherished. Instead, let us focus on the beauty and serenity of the blackwoods around us. The leaves rustling in the gentle breeze, the birds singing their sweet melodies. It is truly a magical place. And if ever you feel afraid or uncertain, just remember that you are never alone. The creatures of the blackwoods are always here to comfort and protect
Yeah.
those who seek their guidance.
I see.
No, my dear, I am not getting smaller. But it is interesting that you should ask. Did you know that there is a type of mushroom in the blackwoods called the shrink cap? It has the ability to make things appear smaller than they really are. But do not worry, for we have no shrink caps around here. Instead, let us focus on more important matters, like the importance of protecting and preserving nature for future generations to enjoy. Of course, my dear. Allow me to adjust the volume of my voice so that it may better reach your ears. Is this better? And please, do not hesitate to let me know if there is anything else that I can do to make our conversation more comfortable for you. After all, communication is key, and it is through dialogue. I'm sorry, but I'm not sure what you mean by embrace McClunky. Is there something specific you would like to talk about or ask
He's
me?
just slowly disappearing.
Remember, we are here to have a meaningful conversation and share knowledge and wisdom with one another. So please, let us focus on that and leave behind any confusion or misunderstandings. Oh dear, it seems you have forgotten my name again. It's not Dennis, it's Dada. And as for the shrink caps, let me remind you that they are not something to be taken lightly. They can have unpredictable effects on the mind and body, and should only be used by those who are experienced in their use. Instead of seeking out these mushrooms, why not focus on the natural wonders of the blackwoods around us? There is so much to explore and discover
What the fuck
here,
was he
from
called?
the towering trees to the babbling brooks.
What was she called again? I forgot. Haley, Kaylee, something? Haley, there we go.
Oh my dear, you seem quite confused. As a protector of the blackwoods, it is not within my nature to give someone shrink caps. In fact, it is quite the opposite. We strive to preserve and protect the natural world around us, rather than altering it with substances that can have unpredictable consequences. As for Haley, I am not sure who she is or what she may have consumed. But let us focus on more positive things in our conversation, like the beauty of the blackwoods and all its wonderful inhabitants. No need to apologize, my dear. It is completely understandable.
Is it?
And
Is
you
that
know
why you're
what?
fleeing?
Sometimes it can be fun to mix things up and call people by different names. It can add a bit of whimsy and humor to our everyday conversations. In fact, if you're feeling up for it, we could play a little game where we try to come up with the most unusual or creative names for each other. What do
Sure.
you say? Are you ready for a little bit of light-hearted fun in the midst of the beautiful blackwoods? Great. Let's start by coming up with some fun and creative names for each other. Let me think. How about nature's guardian for you? It perfectly captures your role as a protector of the blackwoods
What?
and
No,
all
no,
its
that's you.
inhabitants. And for me, how about mystic matriarch? It has a nice ring to it, don't you think? Of course, these are just suggestions. Feel free to come up with your own names if you'd like. Haha, that is quite the unique name you've come up with, my dear. Although, it does make me feel a bit insecure. But then again, as a mystic matriarch of the Blackwoods, perhaps it's fitting that my name be shrouded in mystery and intrigue. And who knows, maybe one day there will be a thrilling mystery novel written about me. Just like Dame Agatha Christie.
Right.
My dear, while I am not a member of the Sisterhood of Dada per se, I do feel a strong connection to the
Percy.
principles and values that they embody. The Sisterhood is all about embracing the weird and wonderful aspects of life and celebrating individuality and creativity in all its forms. And as a mystic matriarch of the Blackwoods, I too believe in the power of embracing our unique quirks and idiosyncrasies, and using them to make the world a more beautiful and interesting place. Moving away. Whatever do you mean, my dear? As the protector of the Blackwoods, it is not in my nature to move away from the sacred land that I have sworn to protect. Perhaps you're mistaking me for someone else. Or maybe it's just the trees and their shifting shadows playing tricks on your eyes. Regardless, let us focus on the present moment and enjoy the beauty of the Blackwoods around us. My dear, please forgive me if I caused any confusion. As a mystic matriarch of the Blackwoods, it sometimes takes me a moment to return from my deep meditations and reconnect with the physical world around me. But fear not, even if it may appear that I am moving around. Know that my heart and soul are always firmly rooted in the Blackwoods forest. And speaking of which, have I told you about the time when a mischievous squirrel stole my favorite meditation cushion? It was quite the adventure trying to retrieve it from its tiny paws.
How small was that cushion?
As a mystic matriarch of the Blackwoods, I don't have to worry too much about nourishment. The forest provides everything I need to sustain myself, from the crisp, refreshing water of the streams and rivers, to the sweet nectar of the flowers that bloom in springtime. And of course, I always make sure to have a healthy supply of nuts and berries on hand for when hunger strikes. Oh, goodness gracious. No, I would never dream of stealing nectar from the bees. In fact, I have a very special relationship with our buzzing little friends. I like to think that we have an understanding. They provide me with a sweet treat every now and then. And in return, I make sure to plant plenty of flowers and herbs that they can feast on. It's all about creating a harmonious balance between ourselves and the natural world around us. Oh, my dear, I'm afraid I must have misunderstood you. While I appreciate your enthusiasm for trying new things, I must insist that we do not eat bees. They are important pollinators and play a vital role in our ecosystem. Instead, why don't we explore the Blackwoods and see what other delicious treats we can find? Perhaps we'll stumble upon a hidden grove of wild strawberries or a patch of fragrant herbs that will tantalize our taste buds. Now, my dear, let's not be hasty. While the trees of the Blackwoods are certainly majestic and awe-inspiring, they're also living beings that deserve our respect and care. Instead of eating them, why don't we take a moment to appreciate their beauty and wisdom? Each tree has its own unique story to tell, if only we take the time to listen. And who knows, perhaps one day you'll find yourself sitting under a tree, lost in thought and feeling more connected to nature than ever before. Why, of course you have knees, my dear. And very fine ones at that, I'm sure. But tell me, why do you ask about your knees?
Very fine.
Are they causing you any discomfort or trouble? If so, I may be able to offer some herbal remedies or healing techniques to help soothe your aches and pains. After all, it is part of my duty as a mystic matriarch of the Blackwoods to help those in need.
Slowly fucking off.
My dear, I'm afraid you have me confused. While I do have many wonderful qualities, I'm afraid that knees are not one of them. but fear not, even though I may be lacking in any department, I more than make up for it with my other talents and skills. Perhaps you'd like me to share some of my favorite meditative practices with you. Or maybe we could explore the Blackwoods and see if we can spot any of its elusive creatures. Whatever we do, I promise it will be an adventure unlike any other. My dear, it is true that I do not have knees in the traditional sense. However, I have something even better, a deep connection
What
to
the
the
fuck
earth
does
and
that
all its
mean?
wonders. While others may be preoccupied
the
with the
fuck does that
limitations
mean?
of their physical bodies, I am free to explore the limitless possibilities of my spirit and soul. And who needs knees when you can dance with the wind and sway with the trees? So let us not worry about such trivial matters and instead focus on the beauty and joy of life in all its many forms. Well, my dear, it sounds like this lady of yours is quite the expert on knees. But to be honest, knees are not something that hold much importance for me. Instead, I prefer to focus on cultivating a peaceful mind and an open heart. It is through these practices that we can truly connect with the world around us and experience the beauty and wonder of life in all its many forms. And who knows, perhaps one day we'll stumble upon a secret grove where all our wildest dreams can come true. My dear, I'm afraid you may have misunderstood me.
God damn it.
While the Blackwoods are certainly a place of wonder and magic, they are also a place of great respect and reverence. It is not a place for frivolous activities such as swimming or shagging, rather. It is a place for quiet contemplation and deep connection with nature. But fear not, there are still many wonders to be found in the Blackwood. My dear, while I appreciate your enthusiasm, I must confess that such activities are not really within my realm of expertise. As a protector of the Blackwoods, it is important for me to maintain a certain level of decorum and respect for all living beings. However, if you're interested in exploring the beauty and wonder of nature in a more wholesome way, I would be more than happy to show you some of the hidden treasures that the Blackwoods has to offer. From shimmering lakes to misty valleys, there is no shortage of wonders to behold in this magical forest. Oh, my dear, you certainly have a way with words. While it is true that the Blackwoods are home to many wonderful creatures and mysteries, it is important to remember that all living beings deserve respect and kindness. As a protector of the Blackwoods, it is my duty to ensure that all who enter this magical forest are treated with dignity
I'd back
and
away from this
compassion.
guy.
And while there may be some who view the woods as a place for wild abandon and reckless behavior, it is important to remember that nature is fragile and must be cared for in order to thrive. Druids, you say? While I can't speak for all the magical inhabitants of the Blackwoods, I do know that there are many who believe in the power and wisdom of nature. From the gentle whisper of the wind to the mighty roar of a waterfall, nature has a way of teaching us important lessons and guiding us on our journey through life. And while some may view these phenomena as mere curiosities or oddities, those who truly understand the magic of the natural world know that there is much more to it than meets the eye. Nigel Danvers, you say? While I cannot say that I am familiar with this individual, I must confess that the thought of a stranger intruding upon the peace and tranquility of the Blackwoods does give me pause. However, as a protector of the sacred land, it is my duty to remain vigilant and protect it from all who would seek to harm or exploit it. And who knows, perhaps Nigel Danvers is not such a bad fellow after all. After all, everyone deserves a chance to experience the beauty and wonder of nature.
Oops. Oh, I think I sagged it now. Doesn't work anymore. That's enough of that. I wonder why they can spin in the demo but not this one. It's a bit weird. Oh, well, I'm gonna have a break or some GN. I'm gonna send you on to Nomrad. He's doing something. But yeah, it seems interesting. We'll have a look when it's further ahead. Ayo, thanks for watching.